All right, bye. Don't slip.
We are going to Bettendorf to hear Kamala Harris.
An hour trek for Megan Foster and her family, an Iowa Democrat, sensing a shift for 2020.
There is something different in the energy this time around.
Senator Kamala Harris.
You can see it in the crowds. In South Carolina, Democrats packed town halls for Harris. They climbed closed bleachers for a view and filled the second floor balconies. Braving blistering cold, Iowans lined up for Harris north of Des Moines. And in New Hampshire, her town hall was so full, the fire marshal closed the doors. But it's not just Harris.
Not enough room for everybody to get inside.
It's been happening at Elizabeth Warren's campaign stops for weeks.
I think healthcare is a right.
And Kirsten Gillibrand perched here on a restaurant booth as she spoke to an overflow crowd in Iowa. Cory Booker has jammed his house parties from New Hampshire to Iowa. And who can forget Amy Klobuchar's determined followers standing for hours, braving Minnesota's winter.
Regardless of the candidate, it's standing room only.
Oh, yes.
Why is that?
I think that there is just a lot of excitement and curiosity about these different candidates. I think that a lot of people do realize that we absolutely have to get this right.
Of course, crowds could be just that, a crowd, and not a sign of things to come. But Democrats in Ames, Iowa believe this does mean something and have a theory about what's driving them.
Why is this room so packed? Why is every room packed that I go to?
Trump. We want to get rid of Trump.
I'm nervous. I mean, I'm obviously nervous. A little bit of PTSD sort of about what happened in 2016. And I think a lot of us are afraid that it's going to happen again.
All right. You want to sign?
I'm excited. This is great. I really can't wait. She's one of my favorite candidates.
A common purpose, an early unifier in this crowd.
You can get this man out of office.
What's happening as far as people being so drawn to you and some of your other Democratic contenders? What's happening?
I think what's happening is that the American public has rightly embraced the fact that their government and its future is in their hands.
I think we're all very motivated. You know, it is very real to a lot of people. So, yeah, I definitely think that we're all feeling this on a very personal level.
There was a building here, I promise. It was called Killer Seafood.
It's been more than a month since the hurricane obliterated Mexico Beach.
Here you would be inside the building.
But as Michael Scoggin shows me what used to be his restaurant, it's obvious the pain is still fresh.
An open kitchen where everybody could see what was going on.
Killer Seafood, a town favorite for years, is gone. Hal Summers was general manager. He's lost his job and his home. Both men could have wallowed in self-pity and left town. Instead, they decided to help the only way they could. They cooked. In a church parking lot, amidst the roar of generators and the smoke of a grill, they began feeding first responders and residents 3 times a day.
Chicken tomatoes, corn, of course.
7 days a week.
You want to know roll?
For free.
You're welcome.
They call it Camp Happy Tummies. Fueled by donations, it provides one of the greatest comforts in dark times, a hot meal.
This is my planning menu. And this is the way I...
This is your menu right here. This is on what, a parchment paper or something?
That is parchment paper.
But over the weeks, this tent has come to mean much more than a meal.
It's a safe place to cry, safe place to let your feelings out.
Everybody has a feeling that they're all together and we're all in this together.
At these tables, they have prayed, mourned the dead, even held a wedding reception. Hal and Michael baked the wedding cake. This is a place where folks temporarily escape what lies just outside. crews are making progress cleaning up, and power, sewage, and water are all making a comeback. But there is still one staggering figure. At least 75% of the homes in Mexico Beach have been destroyed. Camp Happy Tummies is closing. Most of the first responders are gone, and food in Mexico Beach is easier to find. But before then, Michael and Hal will help prepare one last meal to be distributed around town for Thanksgiving. Is there reason to be thankful in Mexico Beach?
Oh yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Even with all of the destruction and all that's been lost?
Even.
We're still here.
So we'll have a lot to be thankful for. We have our lives, and we can rebuild, and it's just going to take time.
A month after the hurricane, people here have stopped looking for reasons to be sad. Instead, they're finding reasons to rejoice.
Look at that. There you go.
Yeah. To be grateful.
It's a beautiful place, and it will come back.
And it's still paradise.
And instead of looking back, they're looking forward. In Mexico Beach, they've come to learn that every day is Thanksgiving Day.
Thank y'all so much.
You're very welcome.
Martin Ascent, CNN, Mexico Beach, Florida.
I will probably remember, as long as I live, getting that phone call.
For Don Trinks, the mayor of Windsor, Connecticut, securing the Amazon Fulfillment Center was the crowning moment of his 16-year career.
I was sitting on my back porch pacing, and the phone rang, and all he said was, "It's a go." All right, what are we having?
Trinks, a volunteer mayor who also runs Bart's Drive-In, a neighborhood hot dog joint, suddenly found himself thrust into negotiating with a corporate giant.
It's become part of our identity, and it's also been good for bringing in other businesses who think, if Amazon can go through their due diligence and pick Windsor, maybe that's the place for us.
The fulfillment center brought more than 1,500 jobs to Windsor, and that impact has trickled down to the town's existing businesses, like Jim's Pizza.
The biggest order we got from Amazon was 180 sheet pizzas in 2 days in 4 different shifts. I had to borrow pizza pans, I had to buy new pizza pans, I had to maneuver storage in my coolers for all the cheese.
She now gets orders from Amazon 5 days a week. Today is no exception.
Amazon just ordered $28. So that's just going to the security people.
In the shadow of the fulfillment center, Four Seasons Landscaping now has a semi-permanent base.
A snow removal part of it, we've added probably about 10 people.
You've added 10 people?
Just for snow removal, yes.
Without this contractor, you wouldn't have needed them?
No.
What Amazon's doing here in Windsor is happening over and over again throughout the United States. Last year, Amazon expanded its fulfillment network by 30%. There are now more than 75 of these centers, with many more to come. The big question is, long term, does this actually help these communities?
Local unions worry the fulfillment centers attract mainly low-paying jobs.
Members that we do represent already in the retail sector are concerned that they are driving the wages down. And so we don't want to see that.
A recent study by the left-leaning Economic Policy Institute found that while Amazon warehouses boost warehouse and storage jobs, they actually don't help overall employment and don't warrant the tax breaks that towns often give them. Windsor, for example, is giving up almost $4 million in tax revenues to Amazon, money the mayor says will be quickly recouped.
To us, the benefit to the 29,000 people of Windsor is over $1 million, about $1.6 million in new tax revenue every year.
For a town with deep historical roots, this, he says, is a stake in the future. Claire Sebastian, CNN Money, Windsor, Connecticut.
Good morning, guys. Happy Valentine's Day.
By 7:30 a.m., 20-year-old Leo Pena is already performing.
You guys are getting there. Don't worry about it. We're here. Hey.
This is what Amazon calls a stand-up meeting. Stretching is required for safety.
Safety tip. Please make sure we are following our neutral wrist position. A few more announcements.
Amazon has become a way of life for Leo.
Amazon on 3. Let's go. Bring it in on Amazon. 1, 2, 3. Amazon!
After joining straight out of high school 2 years ago, he's now a process assistant with ambitions to become an area manager.
I'll do one task, and there's so many different pieces to a puzzle, and once that puzzle is completed, it's a masterpiece.
And that puzzle starts with people like Todd Peters.
Technically, I'm a picker, so that basically means you just literally pick the item from the pods, and then you put it into a tote there.
At 34 and with a degree in French literature, he was forced to look for a job 6 months ago when he and his partner moved to the area.
You can't help but think about a warehouse type factory thing and not have the idea of a sweatshop, but it's clearly not that.
And yet Amazon has faced criticism for the conditions in these centers. Laurie Pelletier, head of the Connecticut chapter of the AFL-CIO, a national organization of trade unions, says she's been approached personally by some employees.
There's a lot of pressure on these workers, that time frames, they need to get things out. And so that's what we're concerned with, is what kind of atmosphere these workers are in those warehouses.
What's the pressure like on the employees here?
So what we do is, their customer demands, right? At the end of the day, their customer demands. We're a business, right? At the end of the day, we're a cost center and we have to be profitable, so to speak. So everything is cost management from our perspective. A lot of the robotics here is really sort of leaning towards that to help enhance the experience of the associate.
Windsor is an 8th generation fulfillment center, which means robots do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Send it back.
Up on the second floor, Lance Jackson's in charge of keeping them in check.
That's part of your job, is to make sure the robots don't crash into each other?
Yes.
And does that happen?
Yes, plenty of times.
The 34-year-old former post office mail sorter transferred from New Jersey to Connecticut 9 months ago to supervise the robotics here.
I didn't graduate from college yet, but that is definitely one of my goals in the near future. I want to be a teacher. I like helping people.
Over in packing, 28-year-old Janice Roche is also impatient to advance. The former nanny with 2 college degrees has just hit her 6-month mark.
I wanted to change, a position where I could move up and expand my growth, use my mind a little bit more. The worst thing about working here is seeing what I pack and being like this morning there was an iced coffee maker. I'm gonna go home and order that tonight.
These are some of the more than 125,000 people in the US who now work in Amazon's fulfillment centers. Jobs fueled by a revolution in how we shop. Claire Sebastian, CNN Money, Windsor, Connecticut.